Hi, welcome back to another network automation video. So I'm going to continue where I left off from the video this morning. I've got the Arista up, so we're going to be able to follow along with the Arista examples now. So this is network module conditional. Let's take a look at another network device conditional example by using the comparison keyword we saw at the beginning of this chapter. We can take advantage of the fact that both iOS-V and Arista OS provide the outputs in JSON format for the show commands. For example, we can check the status of the interface. Perfect. Let's check if that is the case for iOS-V as well. Okay, so it looks like iOS-V is something different than what I'm running. I'm running iOS, so it looks like iOS is different from iOS-V. So unfortunately, I do not have the option to show a interface in JSON with iOS. That is only possible with iOS-V. Let us pretend we have an operation that we only wish to perform when Ethernet 1 is disabled. We can use the following tasks in the chapter 5_3.yml playbook to check whether the condition is met before we proceed. It uses the EOS_command module to gather the interface state output and checks the interface status using the wait_for and EQ keywords before proceeding to the next task. So this is going to be a addition to the playbook, just as the other one was. So I'm going to make the same kinds of modifications. So I will be copying the 5_2 playbook into a different name, 5_3 now. And I no longer need the 5_2. I'll need to add a new entry to the host vars dictionary. I'll need to add a new file to that with information for this Arista. So it looks like it doesn't have instructions for doing that, unfortunately. But that is clearly a necessary, essential step. So yeah, it doesn't give any information about how to set this up to handle a Arista, a new Arista. But it looks like it's going to be using the hostname Arista1. So let's start. So we do have lab preparation. So it shows host vars. So, oops, yep, even in host vars, well, it skips, so it doesn't show you everything you need to know for the later chapters. As I've said multiple times, according to my own rules of engagement, I would not be engaging this book any further. It's just I am succumbing to the sunk costs fallacy right now, because I would be better off switching books and working on another book that is more useful. But I am continuing to work on this book and forfeiting the time I could spend working on the other book I have, Python for DevOps, which I believe would be much more valuable. All right. So, yep, so we're going to have to modify this file. Oh, but we will need to add this to the topology. So let's just add the Arista right here, and let's rename the host name to Arista1. All right, and then we can add, just kind of to make it fancy, it's definitely not necessary, but we'll add 2 Linux effects. It's just kind of extra configuration, but I want it to look nice. So I will have it like that. Now we'll do configure session, host name, Arista1, commit. Perfect. And then on here, I will do a show IP route OSPF. So we've got, this is iOS v2. Or let me just do a show IP route. 10.0.0.0/16. Oops. Okay, so yep, show IP route here. So we've got 0 through 4 exactly. We've got 3 of them, the ones with the links directly connected, but then we've got another 2 learned through OSPF. So we're going to learn 2 more through OSPF. Right now we're using 0 through 4 because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 links, but we're going to end up with 7 links. So we'll use .5 and .6. So let's start off with adding a description. So Ethernet 1. We'll be going to -2. All right. Perfect. So now we'll need IPs as well. I'll use .1 for the subnets on here. So I'll go back to Ethernet 1. IP address 10.0.5.1/30. Now ETH2 .6.1/30. Okay, so one more thing I'm going to need, and that's another loopback address. So this will be, and I can figure out what it's going to be by using the routing table here. I believe it was, yep, it's 192.168. So we've got dot 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be dot 5. Zero dot 5. Yep. And that's just the description. Make it easier. So here's the actual address. I'm not sure if I need to no shut it or not, so I'll just do that. Okay. Oops, so I did a configure. I did not do a configure session. In my opinion, that's kind of a big no-no because I would be immediately adding it to the running config, which takes away my chance to make sure that I did the configuration correctly. Just go in here one more time, configure session, and see if there's a way to validate my configuration. So here's show session config, and then you can do diffs. So you can see how your changes differ from the running config here. And you can see, oops, I did something I did not mean to do. And then you can do probably a rollback somehow. Yeah, so you can do a rollback. And you can do clean config. And now when I do the diffs, oops, so clean config gets rid of all of that. That's not what you want. There's probably a way to abort. Yep, so now I did not make any of those changes. So let's do a change on interface loopback 1, and let's set a description, test, and let's go back to the main session here, and we'll do a show session config diff. So now we can see the changes that would be made. The running config is going to be different with this session config. And it's going to be starting after these lines where the changes are made. And the changes are going to be adding these 3 lines here. So if I hit abort, I won't make those changes. If I hit commit, I will make those changes. So in a Juniper, you would do a rollback 0 if you wanted to blank out those changes and try again. But I think there's really nothing wrong with just doing an abort and then going back in with a configure session. All right. So it looks like this is a -2. So let me do a show session config, not currently in a session. Let me do show configuration sessions and see if there are any live. So it looks like there are 2 configuration sessions right now in state pending. So let's see if we can get rid of those sessions. Okay, so here's what I can do. I can specify the name of the session. Really nice, I like that. So what I can do is configure session, grams config session. So now I've got my name on here. So if I exit out without doing anything, somebody else can come and do a show configuration sessions and see, oh, I was doing something on there. So you can put the ticket number you were working on. You can put all sorts of things, and then you can have somebody else come and do a configure session and go into your session and do a show session config diff and take a look at what you were doing. And then, of course, you can abort it or you can commit it as is deemed necessary. But Aristas are really, really looking good in my book. I'm really a big fan of Arista. You can't argue with that. You just open up a Python shell right on the Arista. There's what's not to love. The Arista so far is probably my favorite networking device I've used. Because Juniper VMX is very good as well, but Python shell. Now you can do that in iOS as well. If you do shell processing equals true, you can use a Linux shell. There's things you can do, and on Nexus, I believe you can get a Python shell as well. Aristas are used, I think, more for like data centers, whereas VMX is more for service provider. So my experience being working for a service provider, this is my first exposure to a equipment vendor such as Arista. All right, so let's get rid of that second session. Yep, because these are just unnecessary sessions. So we'll do configure session. We'll go into that pre-existing one, and then we'll abort that session. So now we'll have blank sessions with no pending sessions around. I wonder if there's a way to look at the history of the sessions. So, okay, I thought memory. Well, let's look at detail. Okay, so you can look at the completed one. Boom, and now you can see what was done in this session. You can also do show configuration, show session-config diff. Oops, I think you can do diff I guess I'm just not sure how that is done. Okay, so you can put it at the end, and then you just get the part that was changed. So it looks like, well, this is interesting because it looks like I took away this IP address in my last commit, but if we look at the show run, we can see that IP address, sure enough, is in there. So I think this is saying this is saying what it would look like if you were to roll that session back. Okay, so let's do a copy run start. There we go. We can, another reason RESTs are great is just WR enter. Really like how fast and easy that is. So we've got the loopback. We're also going to need OSPF. Oh, okay. So now we've got this OSPF configuration. So once I configure those Nexus switches, the routing table will populate on here, but it won't populate until those are configured. So it looks like IP routing is still not enabled. So I will need to enable that somehow. Oh, that's interesting. I can't use the same name for a session that I already used. All session names have to be unique. Okay, so that message disappeared. For most multi-layer switches that can operate at layer 2 or layer 3, you've got to specify what layer it's operating on, and you do that through the command IP routing to say that you want it to use the route table instead of the MAC address table. So this will have a MAC address table. Yep, there it is, MAC address table. But we're going to be using the route table. Other devices, such as this IOSV, do not have a MAC address table. Sometimes they're called a CAM table as well, but it doesn't have a CAM table either because it's a router. It's only at layer 3, and it's not a multi-layer device. Unlike the Juniper that is multi-layer, so you do have the option of seeing both a MAC address table and an IP route table, but you need to specify if you're going to be using the IP route table, but the MAC address table is used by default if you don't specify anything. Just like for any multi-layer switch, pretty much. I found the Aristas are really intuitive if you know Cisco's already. All right, so let's keep using the Arista here. Oh, well, actually, no, we're done with the Arista. So we can move on to the Nexus devices. So I'll bring my lab up here and see how it's connected. So we're going to need descriptions, IPs, and then we're also going to need to modify OSPF. Okay, so this is ET2, which is going to have the .6 network. Okay, so Nexus, you have to enable OSPF on the interface. You can't use that network statement like I did before. But let's just take a closer look at the, hopefully I can do a pipe section. I can. Yep, so we've got router OSPF1, and we've got IP router, which is a statement that goes on the port instead of the network statement, which goes under the router OSPF process. Okay, time for the other one. Now I did forget to do a no shut. So I think I'll do that. Well, let's just do a show int eth 1-3. It's down because I forgot to do that no shut. Okay, so hopefully the Arista now has a full routing table. And it does not. It doesn't even have the routing table entry for either of the Nexus devices. Okay, so this is the Arista. So let's see. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. But on the Arista, it looks like there was an issue where, oh, okay, so the ports never got no shut on the Arista either. Looks like it's more than that, actually. Oh, you know what? I bet you there's switch ports, but it allows you to put IPs on them, even though the IP configuration will not be active because it's a layer 2 port. So that's kind of nice about Cisco's, that they actually don't allow you to do that. Because if anyone was using this was a beginner and not myself with 5 years of experience, CCNP and JNC IPSP, this would be game over pretty much, knowing that you had to convert that from a switch port to a IP routing port. So that's what I like about the Cisco device. It will actually give you an error message, and a new learner can Google that error message and figure out what the problem is and learn more. Here on this Arista, you don't get anything back, so it's going to be game over for a beginner. You're just not going to understand why it doesn't work. All right, so we've got our routing tables full up. We've got, of course, load balanced routes because they're learned through 2 different next hops using the same metric, 51, and we've got a administrative distance of 110. And then, of course, not all of them are going to be learned directly connected. We're going to be learned OSPF because some are directly connected. So that's going to be 5 and 6. But 0 through 4 are learned through OSPF. And then we've also got all of the loopback addresses, and we got the network that goes to the Ubuntu server as well. So let's check that device that has that network as a connected route, which is going to be the iOS, the second iOS device, and of course the Ubuntu server has that as a directly connected route as well. But we will see if it's getting the loopback address .5 that belongs to this Arista. And it is. Perfect. So yeah, everything's good to go. Let's continue on with the book. Okay, so I already renamed that to, if I go back to where that file resides, I can see that I already named it to _3, but I have not made the changes within it as of yet. So I needed to set up my lab. So before I do that, why don't I create the file for that Arista? Oh, and I'll cat out another file. Well, but even before that, let's see if I can SSH into that. So yep, it looks like I can. But the credentials, of course, are going to be not set up. So it'll reject, yep. So let's set up the credentials. Configure session. Username, admin. Oops. And then secret. Privilege 15. Commit. All right, let's see if we're good to go now. All right, and we're good to go. It looks like we didn't get privilege 15. For some reason, we didn't go directly to privilege exec mode. Okay. Okay, so this is now going to be Arista. I'm not sure how to designate it as such. Either EOS or VEOS. So it looks like it's VEOS, so I'll just try that. And then Ansible become, yes, but it won't prompt for a password, so I'll just leave that out. Okay, so now I'm going to need to add it to my host file. And this was shown in the book earlier, the host file. They did include the Arista in it. So hopefully I can find that. I think it was pretty soon. So yeah, here's the Arista example. Oh, no, that just said Ansible. I thought that said Arista. So let's do a search. Oh, here we go, Ansible networking modules. Well, let's do a search. So Arista 1. All right, let's search for EOS. Okay, so we're at this location, but it looks like we skip up ahead a little bit. It will, yeah. So this will say EOS devices, Arista 1, and then I'm going to call this EOS. I'm just curious what I find if I search through files for this, if I can find some sort of way I can determine more about what Ansible wants. One thing I can do is type less. There you go. Well, actually, I can do this. So I can do stop, and then I can do redirect to a file, my search.txt. Okay, and now I can do cat my search.txt pipe less. So here I found my actual playbook and the files I had used. Well, it'd be nice if I could find so here's examples, yeah, within this mastering Python. But it'd be nice if I could find something within the Ansible, yeah, so this is kind of what I'm looking for. Maybe something without tests. All right, yeah, it kind of wasn't very fruitful. I'll do a remove of that custom file and go back to my home directory. And then I will go back to where I had my bookmark. Okay, and I think it will be fine going forward. Right now, I'll just need to add those additions onto the playbook. Okay, so I'm going to skip all that, and then under tasks, instead of doing show hostname and all that, we're going to be doing this. And we're no longer going to have a win statement either. So I can delete everything under tasks and just start new. Okay. Oops, so this is going to be here. Perfect. So let's see what kind of results we get. So we've got failed and failed. Oops, but I never changed because it looks like it skipped over this part. Yeah, this book really, I'm really wondering if it's a good idea to continue working through this book, but it is talking about things that I do want to experience with, so I will be continuing on, but it did not mention that you've got to change the host's name. It's going to read from that file. So in that file, I named it EOS Devices. And then, of course, I need to give it a name that makes more sense. But this is not, oh yeah, yes. So EOS show interface. Oh, so now it failed. Oh, because there's something wrong with the fingerprints. You'll notice it's using Paramiko, so again, this is literally just a framework. It's just meat, skin on the Paramiko bones, so it's what they put on there. Kind of what I prefer is whatever. It is doing it yourself in a lot of cases, but you know, as I've mentioned before, if their work can save you work, then use their work. But if it cannot, do not spend extra work trying to use somebody else's code when you can use your own. All right, so Paramico, that 5 cannot be established. Let's see if I can just see that 2.5. Looks fine to me. Okay, so I'm not sure what's happening here because it says the authenticity cannot be established, the SSH RSA fingerprints, but so I'm going to Google that because it can be established when it's not using Paramico. Yeah. So this is the right question. Okay, so yep. Well, let's just do this. Let's do RM. Oh, I used a dash, not an underscore. Okay, so now I've got the right key in there for sure. So let's see if the Ansible Playbook works. Nope. Okay, so yep, let's do what they're suggesting here and edit the ansible.cfg file. So it looks like you can specify a, yep, you can make a ansible.cfg file anywhere you would like. And that's nice because then you won't have to make modifications to the system-wide file. You can just make it specific to the playbook you are running. So I'm going to make one in my directory and just use the same defaults that the book is using in their Git repo. And now hopefully all my problems will disappear. And they did not disappear. They appear to have gotten worse. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is interesting. It looks like I'm using the wrong commands as for this module. So maybe that module's out of date or something. Let's see what I used and how that is different from what they're saying I can use here. Okay, so supported. So we've got unsupported parameters for EOS command module, and we used the parameter register, but we can only use these parameters here. So yep, this register here is an unsupported parameter. I think it's indented too many. I think that's the problem. Yeah, because it's not part of the EOS command. It's a part of this, the name here. So you have name, EOS command, then you have register. Either that or it's got to be indented more. But I will try both. I'll try the other one if this one does not work. Failed. One or more conditional statements have not been satisfied. Oh. And that makes sense because Ethernet 1 is in fact not disabled. So if we look at what our playbook is doing, we're going to take a look at this, and then we're going to make sure that it's disabled. And then if it's disabled, we will get this message, but ETH1 is in fact enabled, but we can go ahead and disable it because we've got that redundant connection. Okay, so now it will return that message, and we will have a successful run of the playbook. Perfect. So we actually got OK twice. So let's take a look at why we got 2 OKs for that. So here's the playbook. It's because we've got 2 tasks. The first task was this is the name of the task, but the actual task was to run this EOS command module. And within that module, we ran commands. So we ran this show interface 1, and then we waited for the result to equal disabled. So up here, you can see we've only got one fail. You might think, oh, well, we had 2 tasks. Why didn't we get 2 fail? Well, it's because it failed during the first task and did not proceed to run the second task after it failed. But here, it passed the first task because the interface status did equal disabled this time. So it ran the second task, and you can see in the output here, it sent the message interface disabled, safe to proceed. So we've got 2 OKs because it was able to successfully run both tasks. All right, so moving on, now that I was able to get that to work. Okay, perfect. If the interface is active, an error will be given as illustrated by the output below. After the execution of the first task, the output lets us know that the change did not take place due to the condition not being met. So we did see that. Yep, so I won't go back and rerun it because we saw that 1 or more conditional statements have not been satisfied. And we saw that we only got 1 failed, even though we got 2 tasks. And that's because when it fails a task, it does not continue to run additional tasks. It just stops running as soon as it fails. Check out the other conditional statements, such as contains, greater than, and less than, as they fit into your situation. The conditional statements allow the playbook to be smart and executed based on the state of the device. In the next section, we will take a look at Ansible Loops and how they can help us automatically execute plays to multiple items with only a few lines. Ansible Loops. Ansible provides a number of loops in the playbook, such as standard loops, looping over files, sub-elements, do and tell, and many more. In this section, we will look at 2 of the most commonly used loop forms, standard loops and looping over hash values. Standard loops. So I'm going to move my bookmark up and get rid of the old one. Standard loops in playbooks are often used to easily perform similar tasks multiple times. The syntax for standard loops is very easy. The item variable is the placeholder looping over the with_items list. In our next example, chapter 5_4.yml, we will loop over the items in the with_items list with the echo command from our local host. Okay, so things are going to be quite a bit different here. It looks like we've got items which are host names, and we've got hosts coming from local host. That's going to be a difference as well. Let's see what it was in the previous playbook. So in the previous playbook, hosts was EOS devices. So let's take a look at that hosts file for all of the titles. So yeah, so it used to be EOS devices, but now it's going to be local hosts. So I don't know. So it's probably going to be this. Okay, but we're not going to be logging into any devices or anything. We're simply going to be having strings that don't have any special meaning besides them being a string. It's not going to result to an IP, anything like that. Then we're going to have our host just be a local host, so we're not going to log into anything like that. Just a meaningless string, no further capability, that is fine. And we'll just simply be looping through this list of items, and then we'll be printing out to the screen exactly what is in that list of items. We will copy and paste our own public key under the home/.ssh/id_rsa.pub to that and execute the playbook. Okay. So we will combine the standard loop with the network command module in the chapter 5_5.yml playbook to add multiple VLANs to the device. Okay. Well, let's just start with 5_4 and see if we can get that to work. Yeah, I didn't think this would work. So yeah, localhost is unreachable. So I'm not sure what it's trying to do. It looks like it's trying to log into itself, but okay, so it does resolve to itself. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. So yep, it did not work the way they had planned it to. Let's take a look at the repo included with the book and maybe get a sense of what they wanted. So one way we can get a better sense of what they wanted is look at the host file that they are using. So sure enough, they're just using a very similar host file to the one I was using. I did change the name there. So if I do a git status, you can see I modified hosts. But I can do probably like a I wonder if there's a way to just get rid of that. If I do a git pull right now, it'll say I need to stash my changes, I think. Oh, no. Oh, it's because I haven't added it is why it didn't tell me to stash my changes. I mean, I can always just go and manually undo my changes. I'm thinking I might do that because I just want a record of what was on there before. So if I change this back to Cisco, and I change this back to Cisco, because I want this to be a reference, not anything I'll actually use. Now if I do a git status, I've got nothing to commit because I made no changes. So let's go ahead and take a look at that host file again. So yep, everything looks good in that. Of course, there's going to be minor changes because I'm using a different topology, but they're calling something that is not a title the same way I will be. It's not like they use this as the title. You can call either a title or a specific entry under a title. Both are valid. So also, it looks like they don't have anything for localhost within host bars, which is something I thought might be required. Oops, I am missing a Ansible become method in mine. So let me try adding that. Okay, and I'll just try running the playbook again. Hopefully that's all that was needed. I have a feeling it won't be. There was more than just that required, but we will see. Oh, and I think we're on to, oh, I'm in the wrong directory. Yep, so more than that was required. Really not sure. Oh, it's the unreachable. So I think the problem is that I can't SSH to 127.0.0.1. Yep, connection refused. I don't have it set up. So I'm going to need to figure out how to enable SSH on Ubuntu. Okay, so I wonder if I just need to restart this now that I made these changes. So I'll do that. Oops, it looks like the Arista stopped for some reason. I think I might have had them both selected or something, but not a big deal. Just start it. Hopefully, I can now SSH to the local host. Nope. Okay, so they're assuming that I've got OpenSSH client installed. I'm not sure that I do. Let's do a apt search. Well, let's just do an apt get OpenSSH, because if I already have it, it will let me know. Oops, so wasn't able to find it. Maybe there's capitalization required. Nope. Do I have internet access? I do. Okay, so I was able to find something for SSH. So these were automatically installed but no longer needed. The number of suggested packages. Here we go. So OpenSSH client is the one I want. So let's be more specific and not continue with that. And instead, get the one that I want. Perfect. Okay, so now I've got OpenSSH clients. So hopefully, nope, still connection refused. So this says you need a server instead of just a client, which I guess makes a lot of sense to me because obviously we've seen there have been issues forming SSH connections to other devices, but we want SSH connections formed to this device. So yes, it makes sense that it would need a server to me. So let's install one. Yep, and I'm running Ubuntu as well. I'm just running a Docker container, not a VM, so I won't have all the GUI and all that unless I install that extra. Oh, SSHD is not running, so let's see if we can get that to run. Okay, so yep, port 22 looks good. Protocol 2, yep, everything looks good. All of the default look good. So the authorized keys file I might want to enable. Aha, and this looks like the file where I can fix that issue I was having in earlier videos where the KEX key algorithm wasn't allowing me to connect to older iOS devices. But I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see anything like that here. Okay, but all these settings look good. So let's do a restart on the service. And then hopefully that status, yep, flips to running. So now if I do a SSH localhost, yep, now that I've got a nope, so I didn't set up a password on it. I'm going to need to do that. It looks like authentication is in that file I was looking at before. So, aha, here we go. So, here we go. So authentication, login grace time, permit root login. Yep, so I think I want to permit root login, but instead of prohibiting the password, I want the now how can I tell which options there are available? Ah, here we go. Specifies whether root can log in using SSH. Yes. Okay, so I definitely think prohibit password. Oh, so I think this means you can log in without the password is what that means, kind of named kind of strangely, but I think that's what that means. But apparently I have a password set up on here. I don't know what the password is. And I don't know how to set the password. Well, actually, I think I do. It's just going to be oh, I can just create a new user. So let's do user add. And then we'll use the same authentication that we used before. So we'll do user add, and then the name of the user will be admin. Okay, and then the password will be Cisco class. Oops. Oh, it's going to be user mod, I think. There we go. Oops, I might have typed that incorrectly. Oops, I'll take typing out of the equation. Permission denied. Yep, so it's not accepting this as a password. Okay, so they want me to add the encrypted password. I don't know what this is encrypted. And I don't know what kind of encryption they want me to add. But what I can do is just assume that it's MD5, and hopefully that will work. Yep, so I can do, oops, I'll delete that. Well, I'll test it first, because maybe this works. Nope. All right, so let's do a user del admin, and then let's look up how to create user in Linux. Yeah, with password. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay, password unchanged, perfect. So let's do okay, so you can do user add, and then password. Okay, so we can do, so first we got to create a user add, and then we'll call it admin, and now we do WD. Let's do help on this. Login, what does that mean? Does login mean user? I think it might. So I'm going to add password admin. Here we go. And it's going to be perfect. So SSH admin at localhost. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. So everything looks good to go. Got an SSH set up on this, so hopefully that playbook is going to work. So Ansible Playbook looks like it's not a, maybe it was Playbooks. I thought it was Playbook. Okay, well now I'm really curious what it was because I swear it was Ansible-Playbooks. Oh, yeah, Ansible-Playbook. Okay. Maybe I spelled it wrong. ANSIBLE dash PLAYBOOK dash I hosts. Huh. Oh, okay. So I think something happened when I SSH'd. So I had started a virtual environment to enable Ansible, but that virtual environment must have stopped. So it's just going to be source hacking env setup. Oops, but it's going to be in the Ansible directory. But we've got to change the branches. Oh, so the head is already detached, so we won't have to change branches. We'll just need to specify, we'll just need to enable the virtual environment, and then we'll be good to go. And it's going to be env setup. Okay, so now if I go back to my files and do an Ansible version, there we go. I'm back up with 2.8.5. I've got a config file path to the one local to me. And I've got, oh, this is really nice. So this is showing me all the modules. So this is how I could figure out what name to use, VEOS or EOS, just by looking here. So let's do that. So I think this is going to be oh, that's interesting. No such file or directory. So I guess it must be this one then. No such file or directory. Okay. What about, see, I was expecting to see something like this. Oops. So, yep, let's go into modules here. Yep, so here it is. This is exactly what I was looking for. We can see all of the devices that it supports. So we've got VYOS that we looked up before. We've got iOS, iOS XR, Junos, got NetConf, F5, EOS, lots of different things it already has support for. There's some things missing, of course, devices I've worked with that are notably not on here. Extreme is I think, a pretty big vendor that is missing on here. Another pretty big vendor that is missing that I have worked with would be, well, I guess the other ones I have worked with that aren't on here are not big enough to be notably absent. Yeah, these are more the big ones. And, you know, as far as I know, it could be referred to as system or something. But let's take a closer look into one of these here. And I'm not sure if it's a directory or if it's a file. Okay, so it's a directory. So it's just a bunch of py Python files. And let's see what each of them contains. Let's see if there's anything in the init. So nope, the init files just need to be empty. It's just telling Python that it can be imported. Sometimes you can leave notes in there or something, but so here's the file. Okay, so yeah, I think this is where you can see what you would need to add. So if we go back to, let's open another, let's duplicate this. And then take a look, going back to CD, into my files, and look at the host bars. Oops, nope, not the host bars. Get out the chapter, yep, chapter 5_4. So we've got hosts, gather facts. So this is localhost. Oops, oh yeah, it's a console session. So a console session, you've only got the one output. So if you've got multiple console users, they're going to be stepping over each other's toes. You hit the enter key in one console session, it shows up in the other. So it's not like a protocol like Telnet or SSH, where multiple users can do different things independently of one another. That's not possible with a console connection. So I think I'm just gonna leave my curiosity at bay for a bit. Well, I think, yeah, so I'm here now. So let's see if there's anything for localhost. Nope. But let's keep this in mind. I think an easy way to find it is to just do a find-name. So I can do a cd like this, and then cd Ansible, and then find-name modules. So we've got it showing up in a number of places, but I believe it was lib Ansible. Oops. Yep. So it's right here. Yep, and now we have network. So network modules. Yep, here they all are. So this is kind of a important directory to know about when working with Ansible. So here we go. This module, good documentation for it, is this ELS command that hopefully is we used it quick enough to remember, or soon enough to remember. So, oops, let me clear off my buffer. There you go. Now we can see. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not letting me. Okay, I can go back up though if I use the arrow keys. So, yep. So we can see in the doc string, they got a really nice doc string here, the name of the module, and then a description of what the module can do. And we've even got some examples here of how to use it. So this, I think, is the best way to get help on Ansible, is to read through these files, because the doc strings in these files are really helpful. Yeah, I'm definitely a big believer in reading the source code, just looking at it, even if it doesn't make any sense at all. Just having seen it, I think, is sometimes useful. All right. So yep, now let's see if this playbook works, now that it has a SSH server enabled and can actually log into the local host. Oh, I'll just type this whole thing out again. And I've got to go back to the directory it's in, otherwise that -I, giving it a relative path, won't be able to find the host's file. unless there's another host file in the directory I happen to be in at that time. Oops, still got a problem. It says that it's unreachable, which is interesting because I thought I had changed that. Although I do notice something very strange. If I cat out hosts, you can see for all of these other devices, if I go into the host bars directory, we've got files for them, but I don't have a file for local hosts, and they said that I wouldn't have a file for local hosts in the other ones as well. So I don't know how they expect it to work differently for this when it did not work the same way for other playbooks. I don't know why they expected this to have special properties. Here we can see hosts equals localhost, but if we go to a different playbook, we have hosts all, we have, yeah, so, and then here's the one they were using before, and then here's the, so they have entries for the host bars. So yeah, I don't know how they're expecting that to work without a host bars file. I guess I'll just add one. Okay, and then I've got in Notepad++, I've got this saved. So it's going to be 7.0.1. Yep. Ansible Network OS. I guess I'm not sure what to put here. I think, what if I put server? Or, yeah, I don't know what is required to list there. So I guess I'll just leave it the same. Oops. Okay, so I'll just put that there and now see if this works. I am not expecting it to work. Okay, so but we moved on. So now we've got a failed message instead of an unreachable message. Unable to automatically determine host network OS. Please configure a Ansible network value. So this network CLI is going to need to change. Oh, so I have to provide it with this value here, Ansible Network OS. So let's do a Google search and see how I can specify that as a Ubuntu server. So we're going to be creating the playbook. Actually, no, it's not the playbook that we're going to be creating. We're going to be creating the host bars file. Oh, which we don't have any help information available on. Let's see if there's anything here. Okay, so here's an example of using this network, Ansible Network OS, but I don't see any examples of what options are available. I guess this is going to be that modules file that I was in before. So it's going to be cd Ansible, cd, and then Ansible, and then I think it was bin. No, it was lib, Ansible, modules, network. Oh, modules, network. Oops. Okay, so I can pick between any of these. So I don't see anything for Ubuntu. I don't see anything for Linux. Yeah, I'm not sure what system means. So I really don't know which one to pick. And it's the book didn't have information for that. I did see something in the help that looked interesting, and that was implicit local host. I wonder if when you try to reference a local host and you don't have it defined in inventory, Ansible will create a implicit one for you. Okay, so I guess I just need to have it missing from my inventory, and then it will create it implicitly, and I can, oh God. So I already witnessed one car accident out my window before. So that wasn't quite a car accident, but it was a squealing tire. Maybe facing the window was a bad idea. Especially since my car is literally like right there. Like I'm parked like this, and all the car accident happened here, and then the squealing tire happened somebody going like that. So I can either pull my car all the way in the garage, but I don't like doing that because I like to play VR in the garage. Or I can turn and not face off the window anymore when I do these videos. Okay, so let's do some more work on this. I've been working on this for a while, so I might want to give it a break soon, and I'd like to make a JNCIE SP video as well today. So I'm kind of running out of time to do that. So what I'd like to do, is edit my hosts folder, my hosts file, to not include any information about the local host. Okay, because I want that default behavior of Ansible to take effect so that it creates an implicit localhost. Oh, and I do need to be in the My Files directory. So let's run this again, and hopefully things will be a lot better. Nope, so still didn't work. Unable to automatically determine host network OS. Oh, okay. So it's still reading my file. Yeah, I've got a local host file, so it's not able to do that implicitly because I gave it a file here. So, but I can just delete that. All right, so hopefully now it can do its implicit behavior. And it can, sweet, okay, hooray, oh, what a journey. But we've got okay and we've got change. So what changed is it's, let's see here, cd at that, cd.ssh. So we should have a, yep, now we've got a known host. Well, no. We had that before. I thought there would be a authorized hosts folder in there now, or sorry, a file in there now with the keys of all the authorized hosts. But I don't see that. So yeah, I'm not sure what was changed. It's really not telling me what was changed. So, and this is interesting, invalid characters found in group names. What's a group name? cd mod files, cat chapter. So yeah, I don't see anything named group name. Let's do a grep-r group. Yeah, there's nothing named group name anywhere, or maybe it's in my hosts folder, and maybe this is a group name here. Yeah, so maybe it's this colon here. So maybe that's what it is. So what if so I know the dash key is valid. Let's run this again, and maybe that message goes away. Nope. Oh, that's interesting. So I got changed =1 again, even though it's idempotent. I'm not sure why that happened. But we can keep going. I'm going to undo that change to the hosts because it did not resolve that message. And this is the syntax that was given to me in the book. All right, so moving on, we combine the standard loop with the network command module in the chapter 5_5.yml playbook to add multiple VLANs to the device. So, yep, let's do this. So it looks like they just randomly changed the name of the host they're going to use on us, but that's not a big deal because we do know the name of the hosts that we have. So we'll just use nx-osv-1 instead of the name they're using. It's the same operating system, so it won't be a difference either way. So we'll do the remove of the chapter 5 just so things don't get too cluttered. And then we'll do the chapter 5_5.yaml example. Oops. Okay, so here's where I need to do a different name. So I'm using the naming in the topology they put forth in chapter 4. So the name of this is going to be nx-osv-1. So with items, that looks familiar. These are this is essentially the list that is looped through. So our with items here were these strings, and then our command is going to be, so the word loop actually never shows up except for in the custom naming we gave it, but it's implied through this command this command with items. Since you have items, it's going to do the command for each of the items you list. So this is a for loop, kind of like for I in something, an iterable in Python. So that's like a list, a dictionary. But here you have to define out your iterable under the with items. But of course, the iterable can be a variable from before. In this case, that is the case. We define this vars as a list of 3 VLANs. So our iterable is going to be a list. So we're going to be doing this Nexus config, and we're going to be sending the VLAN command with the items here. So it's a for loop, but it's just worded kind of strangely. They're not using the word for anywhere. They're using the word with. But it, to me, appears to be the same as a for loop. Okay, so hopefully this works on the first try, unlike those other ones. As we can see from the playbook, the with_items list can also be read from a variable, which gives greater flexibility to the structure of your playbook. We can execute the playbook and verify on NXOS-R1 that the VLANs were properly added. So let's do that. Ours is going to be named differently, but it will still work. So it looks like it timed out. Let's see what happened. So let's start by catting out the file. So we can see we're using this host here. So let's go in our hosts file. Yep, so yep, we've got that host right there. So let's go into the host vars directory. And yep, we've got it in there. So we'll do a cat. And looks good. So now it timed out. So yep, and sure enough, it's not able to ping that. Now that might be because, yeah, I guess I'm not sure why that is true. We will find out. So yeah, I'm not sure why that is true. I would like to bring up the port that I shut down in a previous example on the Arista, however, just because I want that to be up. But I would not think that it would have to be up. I guess before doing that, I will take a look at iOS v-2 and see what happened to Yeah, so we can see if I do a show route OSPF, which is what I meant to do before, and compare it with show route OSPF from before. Before we had 192.0.5. Okay, so before we were missing .3, and then this is going to be .0. So we're still missing .3. So it looks like there's an issue where maybe the loopback was never created. Oh, the loopback was given .2 on here. So I think there might be 2 .2s on here. Let's just look at them all. Oh, never mind. So this is .3. So it's right. Yeah. So this is .2. So maybe that's the problem, is that the host vars file doesn't have the right IP. Right, because NX01, that's going to be .2, not .3. So the problem, yeah, is with the host vars files. Yep, so this has got to be .2. If I do a grep -r 192.168.0.3, yep, we can see we've got 2 files with .3, but the true file is iOS v-2. That file, the device actually is configured with .3. This file, nx-osb-1, the file is configured with .2. So let's fix that file. All right, and now run this playbook again. I don't know what that invalid characters mean. I will Google that. Oh, we've got another failed, so it's still timed out. Oh, I think what might have happened, because I rebooted it, if I do a show route, or sorry, if I do a route, yep, my route disappeared. It does not persist if I reboot it. I think the same thing is with my IP on my ETH. So I've got to add it to a configuration file if I want it to persist. So I can do that like so. But I'll just add it temporarily. Oh, I see. I have config ETH 0 add 172.16.0.2/30. Oh. Okay, so it seems to be working now somehow. I don't know how I deleted the address, and that made it so that it successfully created somehow. But let's add that route, because right now 192.168.0.1, we're not going to be able to ping anything because we don't have a route telling us how to get there. So let's do that. Route add -net 2.168.0.0/16 gateway 172.16.0.1. Okay, so now we're going to have more luck. I wish I knew how to add it to a configuration file. It's just a Google search away, but that wasn't too much time lost. So let's continue on. Okay, so hopefully I'm going to have a much better result now. Perfect. So we changed it again, and changed it a third time. But we only get a changed one because we made one change in a loop. Even though we made 3 changes, it just tells us that we made one change because it was part of a single loop statement. Now, if I do it again, we'll see that it is idempotent, so it will not be changing it. It'll say changed equals 0. Either that or it won't do that. If it doesn't do that, then in my opinion, that would mean that it is not idempotent. So it is not idempotent. So yeah, I guess I thought it would be changed equals 0, but apparently there is some issue with that. Okay, so let's take a look at those changes as they say in the book. So yep, we'll do a show VLAN. Yep, and now we've got all 3 of those VLANs on there. The standard loop is a great time saver when it comes to performing redundant tasks in a playbook. It also makes the playbook more readable by reducing the lines required for the task. So that kind of triggers me because reducing the number of lines does not make code more readable, from what I understand. So that is kind of a statement that really kind of upsets me, because just because something has fewer lines does not mean that it's more readable. Like it really, yeah. So that was something very, very upsetting for me to read. I guess one thing this book will do for me is kind of give me a baseline, and as I read more books and do more autodidactical studies, I can kind of tell what is a good book and what is a bad book based on how it differs from a book like this. And hopefully I'll be able to tell which books I can avoid and really kind of get over my problem with the sunk cost fallacy and say, you know, I did 30% of this book and it got 3 strikes. So it truly is out, instead of right now where I did 33% of the book. It's got well over 3 strikes, but I'm still doing it. Starting in Ansible 2.5, the loop keyword was added to replace most of the with underscore lookup loops. Well, that's good. The with underscore lookup keyword is still valid for the foreseeable future due to its popularity. However, we should be aware of the new keyword and change. In the next section, we will take a look at looping over dictionaries. Looping over dictionaries. Looping over a simple list is nice. However, we often have an entity with more than one attribute associated with it. If you think about the VLAN example in the last section, each VLAN would have several unique attributes attached to it, such as description, VLAN gateway IP address, and possibly others. Oftentimes, we can use a dictionary to represent the entity to incorporate multiple attributes to it. Let's expand on the VLAN example in chapter 5_5.yml for a dictionary example. In chapter 5_6.yml, we identified the dictionary values for 3 VLANs, each with a nested dictionary for the description and the IP address. Oops, so we're gonna have to use a different name for this again. But let's let's keep working on that one. We won't need to revert the changes, I think, because we saw that it in fact wasn't idempotent. So it will redo those configuration changes, even though we already did them. Yeah, I really have trouble believing that something like Ansible could be automatically idempotent by default, because it seems like it would require a lot of legwork, because in order for something to be idempotent and to not make a change that has already been made, there would need to be a mechanism to detect whether or not that change has been made already. And that seems like it would be a lot of upfront coding, because if I put a description that says my custom description 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, can Ansible tell me if that description already exists on there or not, that exact description? I see, that's what I mean. And then if that's already on there, can they skip adding it? That to me would require custom coding, and to have default idempotency really to me seems impossible. You would have to build in idempotency yourself to look at things. So I really don't understand when they say, oh, Ansible is idempotent, but Paramico is not. It's like, well, first of all, Ansible is Paramico, just with extra stuff added to it. And second of all, Paramico, yeah, like if you just reach out to a device and send it commands, yeah, it's not idempotent, but you can write in idempotency by doing a check beforehand. I just don't understand why Ansible gets to claim that it's idempotent, but Paramico does not. Because does Ansible do those checks beforehand, or do they have them custom? Like, I really don't understand how Ansible has been given the badge of honor of being idempotent and what that means versus some other method of network configuration which has not been given that badge of honor. In this case, from the author of this book, which I'm not sure if it has a badge of honor from other resources as well. From what I understand, I think it does. Ansible really does have a badge of honor for being idempotent, no matter where you will look. But what that means exactly is something I thought I knew, but I just don't understand how that would be true. And as we just saw in the last example, my understanding of idempotency would have meant that if it were idempotent, we would have seen different behavior than we saw. We would have seen it not make those changes because the changes were already made. But we see, in fact, that the change counter did increment. Okay, so yep, now they've got a different IP. No, this is not the IP used to access the device. This is the IP used for this VLAN SVI, switched virtual interface. This looks like this is the sort of thing we're going to be creating on here. A switched virtual interface, also known as a IRB, integrated routing and bridging on Juniper, but on Cisco it's a SVI, switched virtual interface. Oops. Oops, I forgot the, oops. Okay, so here's our loop statements. And as we read before, there is a new way of saying this. You can say for, because it is a for loop. But as they said, this with will be supported indefinitely in the future. And they also went ahead to claim that this was the preferred method. Not sure about that, but I am happy to use it. In the playbook, we configure the first task to add the VLANs by using the key of the items. Let's take a look at that. So here's the first task. So yep, item.key, VLAN item.key. So I guess I don't see. Oh, okay. So these are known as items because they're elements in a dictionary. So an item is a key value pair. So you can do item.value or item.key. We're going to use the key, so 100, 200, 300. In the second task, we proceeded with configuring the VLAN interfaces using the values within each of the items. So here's the second task. So now we're going to use item.value. So an item is a key value pair. So these are all items. We have 3 items. And then the keys are on the left of the colon. The values are on the right of the colon. So our keys are going to be our VLANs, but our values are going to be another dictionary with items in it, 2 items in each of the dictionaries. So item, value, description, item, value, IP. Note that we use the parents parameter to uniquely identify the section of the commands. The section the commands should be checked against. This is due to the fact that the description and the IP address are both configured under the interface VLAN number subsection in the configuration. Before we execute the command, we need to make sure the layer 3 interface feature is enabled on the Nexus device. All right, let's do that. Show run, pipe include, interface VLAN. It is not. So let's do a configure terminal, and then feature interface VLAN. All right, and check that again. Perfect. Copy, run, start. All right, so upon execution, you will see the dictionary being looped through. Oops. All right, let's execute it and look at the dictionary being looped through, and then we will check if the intended configuration is applied to the device. So let's do a pre-check. So there's nothing. Oh, pre-check failed, but I wonder. Yep, that's just because there is nothing on there. So this is not a valid statement because there is no VLAN 100. So let's run the playbook and see how that changes. Okay, so got 2 changes, 1 for each task. And yeah, everything went great. So let's run this again. Yep, now we've got a valid interface to check. So yep, all the descriptions look great. Let's check the other 2. Perfect. Do a show VLANs. So these are the layer 2 VLANs. So there's not going to be any changes there. We just created SVI interfaces. So yep, there's the, let's look at that one more time. Yep, we got everything they got. For more loop types of Ansible, feel free to check out the corresponding documentation. Looping over dictionaries takes some practice the first few times you use them, but just like standard loops, looping over dictionaries will be an invaluable tool in your tool belt. Ansible Loop is a tool that can save us time and make the playbook more readable. In the next section, we will take a look at an Ansible template that allows us to make systemic changes to text files commonly used for network device configuration. All right, so this looks like kind of a bigger section, and this video is going a bit long, so I think I'm gonna move my bookmark up and delete the old one. All right, so yep, and then I will end the video here. So I'll see you in the next one where we learn about templates. This is where things I think will start to get really interesting. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.